Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. Let's start this little burn queue here with a couple of little items. These are the new Hype Train motors. They are a collaboration with Rotor X. We know Rotor X, they tend to make quality premium products, and you can see hopefully you can see the brat symbol there. Get my camera to focus a little bit more. There we go, now we can see it. We can also see, if you can read clearly, these are 1407 4140 kV motors. I guess I could look them up on the website and it would tell me clearly, but it's interesting because when you get this motor in your hand, you think this can't even be a 1400 motor. But, you know, this is a 1408. I'm going to show you here next to it. Give you a little idea. It's just not as tall. This is a 1408 again here on the right. It's got a very interesting base on it. That caught my eye as well. Very thin little metal ring here. I don't know what the purpose of that is. And then we have a relatively small base on the motor as well, but it's not that much smaller. Again, to bring this 1408 in, hopefully you can get an idea for how small that base is. So I'm a little bit concerned that in a crash we may end up tearing that the motor mounting screws or the base that the screws go into might get torn up, but we'll see. I'll be mounting these up shortly and flying them around. They aren't notchy motors by any stretch. They're quite smooth. And from what I've read, the design behind these are made for the Acrobrat. That's a Cadix or RunCam split sort of HD filming. I don't know if I would call that a cruiser. I do know from the people that I've talked to that have flown it is a very heavy setup. So maybe this is the motor to help fix some of those jello issues that I've been reading about. So we'll see what happens with this motor. It'll take me some time, and we'll see how they perform. It may be an opposite of a performing motor, but it is a 1407 and it is 4100 kV, so I'd expect it to perform some level of high performance, you know, punch outs and fast, so to speak. Let's weigh it real quick before we go too far. So the weight as it comes stock is almost 13 and a half grams. So that should give you a pretty good idea. Let's also weigh this little antenna. You might remember in the Futon Mini, it had this antenna. Of course, I bought a kind of a blue branded one that has a UFL connector on here. And I was wondering if in that video the antenna was giving us such clean picture in our FPV view on our DVR. So I bought a bunch of these. I bought some from Banggood. I bought some from Sabotage RC. Banggood has colored ones. Sabotage RC, which is a kind of a web store for Armaton. They sell them also. They're about the same price, but let's get a weight here. So almost 2.2 grams, and the reason why I wanted to weigh that is it has a direct competitor in this sort of axis antenna. Get a look at the front of it here just a touch. Let's weigh that. So this was 2.2, 1.72. So something to consider there. We're looking at, get that image clear. So 1.72 grams, 1.73 grams. So this is heavier. I suppose we could take whatever this outside bit is off. Also, one of you had sent me a message about how this Pagoda design may not perform very well because it doesn't have the third discs on here. I don't study RF, so it's something you might want to look into yourself. It's just on that one particular video where I had one of these, I thought the image clarity was quite surprising. So I bought some because I want to investigate that more. I'm not certain, even though I've soldered one up to kind of my test bed, I'm not certain it's the antennas. It could be that VTX. Also, I do have another set of the BetaFPV 1206 motors. These are the 7500 kV versions. I'll be running these on 3S, of course, because of that high kV, and we'll test them out on 2.5 inch props and 3 inch props on my test rig as well. So same premium design, same premium price, just a higher kV, so we'll be running them on different sorts of batteries. From a math standpoint, this should have a higher top end. When you're calculating the RPMs, this should have an advantage on the top end. We'll have to get a feel for if it suffers on the bottom end with the torque and getting the props spinning real quickly. But we'll see that. It'll probably be another week or so out because I tend to fly quite a bit before I start posting stuff. I'll get 25 flights in, probably almost at a minimum, before I would possibly sit down to do any sort of video on these. So this is possibly the most noteworthy thing that we're going to have in this video. It's kind of got a lot of hype behind it. This is a 2S Whoop. and we've seen these before. You might remember this. This is from Rack on Heli. It is a build, so the 75X is an RTF or ready to fly, versus this you have to have build. Adam Baum built this one for me, and I've kind of felt bad because I think I've talked a few people into getting this and it was too fast for them. Maybe it was their flying space where it was too fast. So and this again is a 2S. It's essentially very, very similar to this. I would put them side by side as far as the category of microquad that they go in. Now, from the images that I've seen, the 75X, which I do have here, let me grab it out of the box. Here it is out of the box. I have the version that has the PH2 connectors for your tiny whoop batteries. Also, look, they've just kind of, I guess they figure we're just going to jam them in that battery tray. So that's one thing right off the bat I don't care for. We've got 2 motor screws in each motor. That could be an issue, may not. We'll see. There was some talk about having an LED in here because the frame is obviously designed for something to go between there, but they didn't do that. They did send along in the box. I don't know if this is production retail packaging yet. It looks like it, but also in the box was an extra canopy and an extra set of props. And then outside the box came more props and for some reason a bunch of PH2 connectors. So I'm not certain why they sent all this stuff, but they did. Also, you'll find that Aaron Ciotti FPV, he'll be getting one. NJ Tech will be getting one. And I don't know how to say his name, but I'm sure you know him. He's a famed tiny whoop pilot. Gel Baker, I think maybe how he pronounces his name. He's in the Netherlands. He should be getting one as well. We kind of collaborated with BetaFPV in order to get those guys some. They were looking for more pilots, and I suggested those guys, and so hopefully theirs will be arriving soon. I do think Aaron Ciotti is getting the 65X, so slightly different version, different motors. Be interesting to see what he thinks of that. I'll link their channels down below. Gel Baker doesn't have, I hope I'm saying his name right, Gel doesn't have a channel that I'm aware of. He tends to post his videos on Facebook, short clips. But just an amazing tiny whoop pilot, and I'm very excited to see what he can do with this. So it's interesting to see that we have this developing. I've said this many times. This is my favorite to fly. Let's look at the camera angle. That was something else I was a bit worried about. A little bit hard to tell with my rack on whoop here on this side, but that camera angle on the Beta 75X does look to be more serious and higher than it is on my built one. So I think this is going to come in around 130 bucks, maybe 129 or maybe 140. I think pre-orders back up. I think the first round of pre-orders sold out, and they sent these out to reviewers. It is nice that they've developed an ESC board with connectors on the bottom here. It is a 2-layer stack. It is not a single board. Hopefully you can see it in there. We've got 2 boards. We've got the ESC at the lower part and that flight controller at the top part. So in that regard, again, it's not that much different than this one. That's a 2-layer stack as well, using a 16x16 mounting option. This one does have some, of course, carbon fiber. And Adam, when he built it, also did some conformal coating or something on there to protect it from water damage. He always does a really nice build. So this will, I'm sure, will be popping up. My review won't be out for a while. I do plan to fly mine indoors. So far, I have yet to see anyone for any length of time fly this indoors. So maybe it's just a problem with that camera angle flying it indoor. But you know me, I'll sure give it a shot. I do have a question. I know one person commented about how they wanted to see some 1400 series testing. And I'm not sure that I will do that, just because the outright speed of these 3-inchers is starting to become a little much for the backyard, so to speak. I think I can handle a really good performing 2.5-inch or a 3-inch on 11 or your 1200 series motors better, because the more and more I fly these, maybe what I need to do is just decrease my camera angle, and you can judge the performance of the motors based upon the flight time that you see and the punch outs, things of that nature. But these are getting very, very fast and very, very powerful, and they carry enough weight, especially with a 450 milliamp 4S battery, that doing all the tight little things that I do with our micro brothers is a little bit difficult with something that is so powerful and fast, such as these. And I have 2 of them that I need to work on. This is actually the Flex FlexRC Ascent X HD, I think is the name for it. You might be familiar with FlexRC. They used to have a real wide H stance on their frames. It seems like he's going more to a traditional X design, and this is obviously designed to where you can put extra boards in there for things like a mini split or the Caddx Turtle or the Foxeer Mix, or anything else you can think of that does HD and FPV. That's kind of the product that all the camera manufacturers are going after. And this has got some GetRC 1408 motors on it. My concern about these motors is I have seen pictures where the motor base has been torn up from a crash. So these might be big enough leverage can be created to tear those up, or the metal might not be hard enough to keep them from getting torn up. I'm not certain about that. I have flown this to some degree. I think these motors are too much as far as they lack efficiency. They're very powerful, but you're not going to fly very long on these motors. That's kind of my initial thoughts of flying this setup around. I think long term for this frame, I would probably go for something like a 14, because the FlexRC frames generally are light for their size. Part of that is the fact that, oh, you can see I've broken it. I just now noticed that as I turned it to this side, I broke it. I don't even remember crashing it. Broke on both sides. Wow. That's surprising. Well, it's something to note about that frame. Broke right there on both sides. Didn't break in the back. I don't see any other breakages. So live news there. News to me, news to you. Or at least when you see this. I forget what I was saying. Oh, oh, you can even see the camera's crooked now too. Well, I guess that might be my review of this frame. I'm going to have to get in contact with Dimitri and say, hey, I think there might be, I think it's broken right there too. And there's a stress mark down in there. I don't know if you can see that. There's a little, hopefully I can get the light on there just right. Down in there right by the camera angle right across this. So it looked like it broke in a couple of spots. You can see the camera's cockeyed. So that might be the end of that review. You see I've got trying out one of those Pagoda antennas. HGLRC F428 flight stack, of course. Let's put this to the side. That brings up some new questions for me. This is a relatively new Maximus FPV frame. Forgive me, Max. I forget what you call this now. I know the other one was a modulus, and in the moment I can't think of what the name just escapes me. But pretty awesome little micro here. This is a 2S flyer, of course. Adam Baum built this one for me as well. Not for free. I paid for it. He built this when I was convalescing from hernia surgery. So this was kind of a post hernia surgery gift that I haven't gotten around to, actually. I've been flying other things, but if you can get a quick look at his work, he does really nice builds. So if you're not comfortable doing your own build, I would definitely suggest looking him up on Facebook. Adam Baum Build Services. Just search that on Facebook and you'll find his site, and he can build pretty much anything you want. He can suggest parts if you're unsure about what you want. Maybe you've seen a frame somewhere and you want to try that sort of frame out, or you saw a video and you want to recreate that sort of experience. I'm sure if the video poster won't do it, Adam Baum can probably suggest some particular parts because he's probably built one before. Some more motors. These are the T-Motor and Racer Star sort of collaboration. These are 1106 6000 kV motors. I don't mind the color scheme except for the green at the bottom, but it doesn't bother me. Even the green doesn't bother me a lot. But this one is a surprise. I'm kind of excited to show you this. This will actually be ready. This video will be ready this week. I've pretty much concluded my flying on this motor, and I've got kind of a couple of flights picked out. I just need to go through those flights again to see which one I think is best to show. But I think you should stay tuned if you're a builder or if you're looking at 1100 series motors. I don't want to tease you to the point that you think it's, something outside the bounds. So essentially what I found was this is a really good overall performing motor. A little bit like the 1206 4500 kV, but only this is on 3S. I got, on a regular basis, almost 3 minutes flight, and that is really rare for me on 1100 series motors. Extremely rare. I sometimes have troubles getting a minute 45, and I'll get battery warnings in 30 seconds, like on the Hawksky 1107 motors, which became real popular. And then as I tried them, I I wasn't great. I didn't think they were great. I thought they were a well-performing motor, but they sucked all the juice out of your battery, so what's the point? You can't fly for more than 45 seconds the way you want, so you've got to cruise. Well, I don't want to cruise. I want to fly like I want to fly. And this motor consistently, nearly a 3-minute flight, time and time again on 3S 550 milliamp. So that video will probably be coming out yet this week. I'm going to have some delays the next week. We are having some work done in the house, so we're going to have to stay in a hotel. So my flight time is going to be drastically reduced. And of course, my video editing time, because I do it here on a desktop, is going to be nil. So you may see a little gap as far as me releasing videos. But I think this will be out yet this week. I'll work on this video here relatively shortly. So we're down on the last two things. If you've hung in there this long, this is the Eris X 110. It's a 2.5-inch prop machine. I've been flying this around, and I don't know why they use these motors. I know it's an 1106, but I can't read the KV on there. I think it's 6,000. I guess the short order is, if you're a beginner with this and you're looking for something with prop guards, but yet you want to fly outside, this works okay. It has what I would consider a flaw in the flight, and it's kind of fatal. And that is when you come in from a dive, so when you go vertical, there's a point where you travel enough vertically to where the quad, for some reason, just pitches up crazy, and it almost pitches up and back. So you go from a vertical position, or almost an inverted position because of the camera angle, to where you're kind of coming, if this is down, you're kind of coming like this, and then the whole quad pitches up, and it pitches up so heavy to where you're almost looking at the sky. So I had a number of crashes because of that. I did a lot of different PID tuning on it, and I could make it less dramatic, but then I would have oscillations. So when I'd start pumping up values to try to get that gone, then you could hear the motors were warbling. And I did so much PID tuning in this particular case that I actually reset after a while because I got frustrated. So I went back to a basic PID tune where the props sounded normal and regular flat flight, but this isn't a machine you'd want to do dives with. I did not test that without the prop guards. To me, it seems like if you buy something like this with prop guards, your intention is to fly it with prop guards. Maybe not always, but that's your primary goal in buying a machine like this. These prop guards also stood up better than I suspected because I was having those crashes out of dives, and I didn't break any of them. The only thing I did break, or I didn't really break, it uses, you can see here, the whole stack has got all these O-rings in it. Canopy has got this carbon fiber here, and it's connected via 3 screws around the sides. But that piece is connected to the flight stack directly. So I'm not certain if it happened in one crash or after multiple crashes, but I ended up losing 3 of the nuts that were holding that carbon fiber piece to the flight stack. And so I ended up having to replace those and source those. Maybe it's just that this is too squishy. I mean, that soft mounting is really loose, and I didn't hunker it down because I don't want anything touching. So I got it pretty finger tight when I put those nuts back on. But this does have a micro CCD camera in it, the run cam. I forget which one it is. I'd have to open it back up and look at the back of the camera. But it is a run cam Swift of some sort. And this video I pretty much concluded as well. I just haven't recorded anything about it yet other than the flights. So you might remember this camera, and it did not show well. And the company, FXT, has been all over me to do another video and to do this and do that with the camera. I suggested to them that they ship a product as it should be used rather than asking someone to make a sort of changes. Basically what they asked me to do was to refocus the lens, which I did. Then they asked me to change a number of settings on the camera, which I have not done yet. But my question is to you, should I revisit this? Is that something that would be honorable or not honorable to revisit this? I can refocus the camera as best I can, which I've already done, and I can set the settings as they have asked me to, and then note that in the secondary video. And if my secondary question on this topic would be, if I did another video, and it turns out that, you know, the quality control or they just had some manufacturing malfunctions, if it turns out that making the changes that they requested yields a much different result, should I then take down the other video? To me, I'm thinking kind of yes, because it doesn't have that disclaimer of, in this particular case, you know, maybe this is what I'll do. Maybe this is a better solution, is to include some of that previous footage in a new review. That way I get both sides of it, and I can tell the story of how this camera kind of evolved in my hands. I think that's what I would do. Let's go back to my original question. Should I even revisit this? Thankfully, I haven't gotten any message from him in the last 2 days, but for almost a week and a half, I got a message every day, multiple messages every day about, you know, redoing that video. And I understand they're trying to protect their brand. They feel this is a good quality camera and it didn't show well, and they're trying to get me to correct that, and maybe that I should do that. But let me know what you think. I'm prepared to do that, but it'll still take me some time because many of you requested flight video on camera reviews. And I don't think in the future I'm going to do too many more camera reviews like this. I just think they're so subjective that 9 times out of 10, the comments are probably 50-50 of just kind of general comments, thanks for the video, to, oh, you need to change this and you need to change that. And while I respect those thoughts, I cannot spend all the time in the world focusing on a camera, and it's certainly not fun to change all those settings and go redo your testing. I would prefer to go fly and just have fun. That's kind of my thoughts on cameras. I think most of them are pretty dang good anymore. This one came with the Viper FXT goggles, and so I did that initial review, and you may have seen the video, you may have not, but should I revisit this, or should I just kind of blow that relationship? Because I think at this point they're just mad at me, and they probably won't come calling again, but that's all right. I don't get offended at those things. Hopefully they don't. I don't, you know, say terrible things to them when they come calling. I try to be respectful, but I'm also persistent as to my point of view. So I brought a few things back out here to wrap up the video. If you have any questions or comments, I'll find links to the various things and I'll put them down below. Don't forget, NJ Tech will be reviewing the beta product. I think he is also set to receive the 75X. I'll put a link to his channel down below. Aaron Ciotti FPV, he will also be producing some flight videos, I think, of this. I know he's got one coming, and I know he likes micros, even though he's gone a little bit to the dark side with the 5-inchers. But he's a great pilot, and I'm excited to see what he can do with it. And look forward to, I think it's Gel Baker. I wish I knew how to pronounce his name properly. Hopefully I'm not offending him or any of you with my butchering of his name. But I look forward to seeing his videos on Facebook. He's really quite amazing with what he can do with the brushed whoop. So I'm excited to see what he can do with a 2S brushless whoop. Okay, I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.